moment, but I have to start with a developing story. Obviously, LIV Golf's been around for several weeks, several months on end. We've been seeing a lot of players defecting. And now Tiger Woods allegedly met with other top golfers this week, including yesterday, to try to rally support against LIV Golf and actually to defend the PGA Tour. They're talking with Commissioner Jay Monahan. So for the longest time, I've kept my feelings, my personal beliefs about LIV Golf private because it's become very politicized and it's become one of these issues where people are very sensitive and they've got polarizing opinions and it's emotional. And if you support LIV Golf, it implies a certain partisanship, typically conservative. And if you don't support LIV Golf, you're likely a liberal. But to me, this is a sports, obviously a sports topic, but it's a lot more convoluted and complex than that. And I think that it's too simple of an answer to just simply imply that your position means you're leaning a certain partisan way. It's not that black and white to me. And if we were to set aside our ideological differences and simply approach this topic and how Tiger Woods' involvement and what's been transpiring from the perspective of how is the PGA Tour handling a rival upstart league? Because if the argument is simply, hey, we don't support anyone being a part of a league that's funded by individuals that have violated human rights, the Saudis, if that's simply what the argument is about, then we don't have any argument. There's nothing to debate here. I'm not going to talk about this. Other news outlets aren't going to talk about this. If the argument this entire time, if the reason why the PGA Tour was livid, if the reason why the players in the PGA Tour were so upset and frustrated by players defecting simply on the rationale that how could you ever join a league that's funded by these types of people? If that's the sole reason behind the argument and by the frustrations, then there's no argument. But I think the problem is the original argument has become a lot more diluted, and we've shifted away from that original premise of it's unthinkable, it's unfathomable that we would accept money from these types of people, whereas now the argument has shifted and it's the PGA Tour is threatened by LIV Golf. And what can current PGA Tour players do to alleviate the situation and derail LIV Golf's efforts, not on the basis of who's funding it, but simply on the basis that it's threatening the institution, the PGA Tour itself, and this is a rivaling league. And that's a very interesting distinction that I think hasn't been touched on enough. And this is why I actually am not in approval of Tiger Woods meeting with these other players to form a coalition and to rally the support. Because I think, by all accounts, what they've been discussing hasn't been the crux of the issue. Tiger Woods is a billionaire. He's benefited greatly from the PGA Tour. He's made millions and millions of dollars, all deserving, because, and it's been off of his own merits, off of his talent, off of his ability to capitalize on the PGA Tour events and win time and time and time again. And so he can afford to turn down a $700, $800 million offer to join LIV Golf. He can afford to decline it and reject that offer because he's accumulated generational wealth on the backs of the PGA Tour. But most of those guys can't. And again, whether or not you or other people agree with those players' decisions to defect, and I certainly don't, because of the human rights issues. But even if we do feel that way, most of those other golfers aren't in the position where they can afford or would be wanting to turn down that type of money. And quite frankly, they shouldn't have to. It's not their fault that perhaps the PGA Tour isn't doing enough on their end to compensate them with guaranteed money. And I think that is the heart of the issue, is what these players should be talking about with Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA Tour. And what the PGA Tour should be doing, instead of lambasting publicly guys who defect for LIV Golf, is asking themselves internally, why are they leaving? Because that's the heart of the issue. Again, if this was simply a political stance argument, there's no argument. If this was simply about a black and white decision, you join, it means you support Saudis. If you don't, you don't. If that was simply what we were talking about, then there'd be nothing to talk about. But now, as we're starting to learn more about this league and we're starting to see more and more players shift away and defect, we've altered what the headlines are. And now it's about defending the PGA Tour. And the PGA Tour has taken a hardline stance, and they have come out and prevented players, and they've banned players that have joined LIV Golf from participating in PGA Tour events, including majors. There have been a select number of golfers on the Pro Tour that have been permitted to play in some PGA Tour events. And that's fair, too, on the part of the PGA Tour. I've got no problem with them enforcing that rule. If you go elect to play in the LIV Golf tournaments, then you know fully well that you're not going to be able to participate in PGA Tour events. And if that's a decision you want to make, that's a decision you can make. You should be able to make it. But either two things are going to happen. Two things are going to happen. Either the PGA Tour is going to realize we're probably going to have to guarantee these golfers more money and offer a larger purse to entice them to stay, or we just roll the dice and you can walk and defect and accept more money from LIV Golf, and we're just going to see how things play out. But the problem is the latter alternative is proving to be harmful to their business, and it's hindering their prosperousness, because a lot of players are defecting, a lot of players are accepting the money, and it's hurting the business of the PGA Tour, and they're losing money, and they're losing interest, and they're losing big name players that are all defecting. And really what's going to happen is likely the former alternative. And so if I was Tiger Woods and I'm Rory McIlroy and I'm Justin Thomas and I'm Jordan Spieth and I'm Ricky Fowler and some of the more prominent players that are still on the tour, because there are reports and rumors that Cameron Smith, the number 2 ranked player in the world, may join LIV Golf. If I'm these elite golfers, I would be addressing the elephant in the room and not asking, or rather not criticizing these players for leaving, but instead asking, why are they leaving? And addressing that problem. Because until you address that problem, you're going to have the same problem, which is players are going to continue to leave. And if you want to run that risk, if you're the PGA Tour, by all means, go ahead. And during that process, if you decide to join LIV Golf, you shouldn't be upset that the PGA Tour denies you opportunities to play in the PGA Tour. That's a decision you make. Obviously, we remember when the NBA and the ABA merged. Initially, the NBA was established in the late 1940s, the ABA the 1960s, and the NBA kept poaching all of the best players from the ABA, including Julius Erving, Dr. J. Why? Because they could give more money. It was a more glamorous, more prestigious league. Now, again, who was backing and funding the league is different in this instance. But I think that we've tried to reduce the argument down to a simple pro or against choice. And that's why I've been opposing this meeting the more time that I've been thinking about it, is because I don't truly believe that the meeting is intended. I don't think the intentions of this meeting are to fully better the PGA Tour and its players. And more importantly, its players, but more how to protect the PGA Tour and the institution itself. Whereas what they should be doing is asking, why are these players leaving? And how can we make the PGA Tour more enticing so that we don't lose our core guys? So I just think we've been placing a little too much emphasis on on the faultiness and on the erroneous decisions of the golfers to leave for LIV Golf, and we're blaming them for their decisions, and we're heaping all this criticism in their way and negativity in their way. And again, I disagree with it. I wouldn't opt to leave for LIV Golf, but no one's offered me $200 million. And instead, they should be talking to Jay Monahan, and saying, okay, Commissioner, there's a reason why they're leaving. How can we treat our players better? How can we compensate them better so that they don't feel the need to take money elsewhere? And that's where I think the heart of the problem lies.